Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
We are going to catch up with our good friend Mike Renner. CBS Sports is joining us here, NFL Draft Analyst. Mike Renner, kind enough to join us here this morning. Also, Mike is the host of the Pushing the Pile podcast, along with Kyle Long, former NFL player Kyle Long. Mike, a big thanks for joining us and hanging out with us here in the Chippewa Valley this morning.
For sure. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Hey, first off, with the draft, just kind of a general question. When you look at this draft, what are some of the position groups, in your opinion, that are maybe the deepest and maybe the weakest with this draft?
I think there's three that really stand out to me as the deepest. It's running back, tight end, and edge. I'd even maybe throw in defensive tackle in there too. All four of those classes are very good, whether it's some top-end talent, whether it's some depth. Those are the top. I think the weakest in this class, I think it's right up the middle of the field on the defense. I think linebacker and safety are not especially great classes. Linebacker specifically, I think that's probably the worst. I do think interior offensive line is not necessarily a great class, but it's more like pure interior offensive linemen. There's a lot of guys in this class who are kind of tweener tackles who, for some teams, you might kick inside. So I think if you're looking for an interior offensive lineman in this draft class, like, you should be scouting offensive tackles.
That kind of almost sounds like, too, that would fit a Packers kind of fit, too, because it feels like they look at those tackles or guys that play multiple positions on the offensive line, too.
Yes, I would be surprised if they didn't take a tackle in this draft class, just because there's so many of them that kind of fit that Packers mold. It's historically been where they've gone on. Literally, they just did it last year with Jordan Morgan. So, I think it's a draft class that sets up well for them.
So I got to ask, this is from my 7-year-old, because he asked me this the other day. So I'm like, I'm going to ask Mike this question. It's probably, everybody's wondering this, but my 7-year-old wants to know, who should take Shedeur Sanders, Mike?
That's a great question. I'm of the opinion, I've had this idea for a while now. So whoever gets Travis Hunter, whether it's the Browns, whether it's the Giants, I think they should then trade back up and go get Shedeur Sanders. I think that would be, in my opinion, just a great combo to have those two. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it worked out so well at the collegiate level. I think Shedeur will fall. I don't think he is a top 10 pick anymore, but he would be within striking range for those teams at the top of the second round.
Is he the most intriguing prospect of this draft in terms of where he goes, or is there, just straight up from a talent perspective, who do you think is the most intriguing prospect in this draft?
That's good. I think he is, just because of the position. Where is he going to play? Like he's obviously fully capable of doing both. I have him as both my cornerback one and my wide receiver one in this draft class, and that's obviously a combination that we've never said. Like, no one. You can go back however long you want in draft history. There hasn't been a guy quite like Travis Hunter. So, for that perspective, he's easily the most intriguing.
Outside of Travis Hunter, if you view him as a wide receiver or such, who do you think is the next best wide receiver amongst this group?
I think it's Ted McMillan. Not to say that he'll for sure be like the best. I just think he has the highest floor amongst the rest. He's got a massive catch radius. He's super smooth. He's just a great natural receiver of the football. And so I think that he, is just a very high floor possession type of wide receiver. And he doesn't have the explosive ability of some other guys in this class, but the rest is all there.
Mike Renner from CBS Sports is joining us, also host of the Pushing the Pile podcast, along with Kyle Long, talking some NFL draft with us. So I think if you ask most Packers fans or most Packer people out there, what's the biggest needs for this team entering this draft, you're going to hear defensive line or edge, a corner, wide receiver, as you mentioned, maybe some offensive line depth. Is there any players, when you kind of look at this draft and maybe where Green Bay's drafting at in their position, that just kind of stand out to you as like being really good picks for the Packers at like number 23 or in day 2?
I do think that, after Travis Hunter, there's two corners in this class that I have first-round grades on. Will Johnson from Michigan, Jahdae Barron from Texas. And I think we saw last year that teams prefer or have started preferring, like they've devalued corner, at least in the draft. Like Quinyon Mitchell went in the 20s last year, and he was an awesome prospect. I would put those guys kind of in that category of Terrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, who went in that early 20 range. And you saw the impact that Quinyon Mitchell made as a rookie. I think that one of those guys, whether it's Jahdae Barron from Texas, whether it's Will Johnson from Michigan, I think one of them will be on the board. And I think that might be where the value ends up being for this Packers team.
How big of a need, you hear Brian Gutekunst a couple weeks ago saying, talking about his defensive line and such, how a lot of fans that we talk to want to see that pass rusher. They want to see another edge rusher because maybe they're not sold on Lucas Van Ness. But when you look at Green Bay, they've technically got 4 first-round picks on there: Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, and Lucas Van Ness. Do you still see that as, with how deep this class is, as a big need for Green Bay?
I don't see it as necessarily a need, but I think it's good team building to continue to strengthen your defensive line. I don't think you have to look too much further than the Eagles, right?
Mm-hmm.
To know that getting a unit that not only has good starters, but your second string can still rush the passer, can still be an effective unit. That's how you get to be, top defense in the NFL the way the Eagles were last year. So I think that to me is just something that I'd be interested in if I was the Green Bay Packers and Brian Gutekunst.
It's another year. It's kind of like, to quote, taking this from the Masters, a tradition unlike any other right now when it comes to a wide receiver and whether Green Bay is going to take one in the first round and such. And you mentioned Tet there. And then, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on Emeka from Ohio State, because that seems to be a kind of a popular one for Green Bay amongst all the mock drafts out there.
Yeah, Ibuka's just he's probably, so I'd said Tet's a really high floor. I think he's probably the second highest floor receiver in this class. He's just a guy with really good ball skills, really good route running ability. Obviously, he came from Ohio State. Everyone from Ohio State has really good route running ability. And then he's just a really smart, savvy receiver. He's going to block in the running game. That's obviously something that the Packers covet. So, I think that if he's the pick, you might not be like over the moon about it, but you should be pretty happy about it.
I know in your you had a 3-round mock draft just a few days ago, and you mentioned as one of your favorite day 2 fits for the Packers was C.J. West, defensive tackle. Why do you think that's a good fit, or why do you like that fit for Green Bay?
I like it because they need that nose tackle presence, right? I think Kenny Clark at this point in time is just not, he's not the Kenny Clark we know and love.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of relied on him to be that impact guy in the middle, at least, at minimum in the running game. You lost T.J. Slayton over the course of the offseason. There is no guy who can really hold the point in that defense. And I watched West tape at Indiana, and they went from like a below-average run defense the year prior to the number 2 run defense in the nation this past season. It was like they didn't have any other personnel changes. It was C.J. West transferring in from Toledo who really transformed that run defense. So he may not be, an elite pass rusher or anything, but they really need that presence in the run game on that defensive front. So him in the 3rd, him in the 4th. There's a lot of good run defenders in this defensive tackle class. I think the Packers should definitely be taking advantage of it somewhere in the mid-rounds.
Mike, before we let you go here, is there, maybe a guy or maybe a couple of guys that you feel like, whether they're first rounds or maybe day 2s, that are maybe getting a little underrated or maybe not mentioned a lot that you just really like or you'd be pounding the table for?
Yeah, I think the one guy in the first round that if he falls to the Packers, I'd just be like, maybe it's not the biggest need, but I'm drafting him, is Derek Harmon from Oregon. I think that guy's just truthfully what a top 10 defensive tackle looks like. I don't see a lot of weaknesses in his game. He's a top 10 player for me in this class, and he's one that I've seen him getting mocked all the way like late 20s, falling out of the first round for some people, and I'm just like, I don't see that at all. I think that guy's got it. So he's one in the first round. On day 2, I think the guy that I keep going back to is Kevin Winston Jr., the Penn State safety. Obviously not a position that the Packers are going to attack before like the 5th or 6th round for a special teamer, but to me, he's gotten flown way under the radar after tearing his ACL early on last season, but it was just a partial tear. He's back healthy now, and watch his tape as a sophomore. I think if he would have been healthy this year, he could have been safety 1 in this draft class. So,
last question for you. You're the Browns, and assuming Cam Ward is the first pick, are you going Hunter or Abdul Carter?
I'm going to Abdul Carter. if you tell me I can have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter for the next 5 years, because you extended Myles Garrett for the next 5 years, and you get Abdul Carter when you draft him for 5 years, you could have the two best edges in the NFL. I mean, that's Abdul Carter's ceiling. This guy is freakish athletically. I think within his rookie contract, he'll be a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. Myles Garrett, obviously, I think for the next 5 years, you could probably bet on him being a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. Last time we saw a duo that was both top 5 guys, it was like the Broncos with DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and that defense won a Super Bowl. So to me, it's not really a debate. That's what I want if I'm the Browns. Obviously, Travis Hunter, insane player, not going to denigrate him any means. It's just for the Browns specifically, give me Abdul Carter.
I know Travis Hunter said the other day that, he's wanting to play both, and if he's not allowed to, he'll quit football and such. But, I mean, would you play him both ways if you drafted him?
I would. I think he can do it. I've been saying that, it's easier. I think a lot of people said defense for him because it's easier to, get a few packages on offense that he can run and have come in on third downs or whatever. He's not going to do both full-time. That's just impossible. But I'm of the opinion that if he's wide receiver full-time, and I think that's where, the value is. Wide receivers get paid a lot more, and I think he's exceptional at it. Could be a top-of-the-NFL sort of guy. He can go play goal line. When you're in the red zone, you're not running 40 yards down the football field getting you gas. You're running 10 to 15 yards. You're going laterally. It's not nearly the ask of him. So he plays wide receiver on offense. When you get to the red zone, he comes in, plays either slot or whatever, and can be a value add in that way. I think that's what I'd see as his best sort of path to making that that two-way impact.
He's Mike Renner from CBS Sports, draft analyst for CBS Sports, also host of the Pushing the Pile podcast with Kyle Long. Dude, appreciate the time as always. Love always chatting with you and picking your brain. So enjoy the draft and hopefully catch up with you again soon.
For sure, Dan. Thanks so much for having me. Go Pack Go.